Welcome to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host Yusuf, and this show is about honest conversations about mental health, meaning, and the inner work that often gets ignored in a fast moving world. Today's guest is Larry Kesslin, author of The Joy Molecule. Larry's life changed in 2012 during a trip to rural Uganda, where he encountered people who had very little materially but were very deeply connected, purposeful, and joyful. That experience challenged everything he believed about success and happiness. For over a decade, Larry had studied joy, purpose, and connection, working with leaders, entrepreneurs, parents, and people navigating major life transitions. His core insight is simple but confronting. Joy doesn't come from the achievement alone, it comes from alignment. Larry also speaks openly about mental health, including his family's recent experiences, and brings a grounded mix of personal stories, neuroscience, and spiritual insight. Larry, I welcome you to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life.
Thank you, Yusuf. That was a very kind introduction, and I appreciate the opportunity to share some ideas that I have, some beliefs. I'm not sure they're wisdom at this point in life, but we'll see how this all goes. So, thank you for the opportunity.
Pleasure is all ours, sir, and let's just get into it.
Sure.
So, Larry, joy is a word we hear all the time, chilly around holidays, around this time of the year. But people often confuse it with happiness or excitement.
Yes.
Let me ask you very directly:
Sure.
what is joy and what it is not?
Um, it's a really interesting question, and in the book, I talk about defining happiness and joy, and I think we all need to define it for ourselves. I don't think there's any one universal definition, although the definition I've come up with, I have shared with lots of people, and lots of people say, yeah, that's a good definition for joy. So I'll start with my definition for happiness, which I addressed in my last book called Success Redefined. And to me, happiness is getting my needs met. And needs being defined however you define needs. So for me, needs are food, water, shelter, safety, love, air, and health. Those are the things that I need. And there are many of us that need too. So that's a need for some of us. But those are the needs we have. Everything else, I believe, is a want. So that's my happiness definition. And I'm not saying that my definition has to be anybody else's definition. It's uniquely mine. So for joy, I started looking at people that I felt were joyful. And I tried to figure out what it is they all had in common. And I've asked hundreds of people over the last decade plus their definitions for happiness and joy. And the one definition I'll say that doesn't work for me is I'll know it when I feel it, because that just doesn't work for me. Most people that are saying that have never experienced joy when it was never modeled for them. So if it's not modeled for you, how could you know it when you'll feel it? Because you have no idea what it really looks like. So for me, I came to this point where I said, joy is knowing a sense of inner peace. And inner peace comes from knowing what you are, who you are, and why you are. And it comes in that order. A lot of times we'll say who, what, why. But I say what, who, why. Because when you figure out what you are, like your skill set and how you live in this world and how you show up, a little bit of your identity in public, that's one piece. Your who is your values and your essence and how you are in the world, how your being shows up. But your why is your reason for being. It's your deepest knowing. It's that thing inside of you that says, I am. And I make the joy molecule. So the atom in the middle is joy, and the three atoms around it, because atoms together make a molecule, and the three atoms around it are the what, the who, and the why, and they're different sizes. Because I think joy defined for me is knowing what you are, who you are, and why you are. But they're not the destination. Joy is not the destination. Joy is a doorway, and that doorway is to deeper connection. So the level of connection you get with a what conversation, a conversation about what you are, which is I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a father, I'm all these things, but that's my identity. That's my mind telling me that I am something. Your who is a deeper connection with someone else. So that's why I think who is slightly more valuable as a connection point than a what. But the why connection, when I meet people that have a shared purpose to me, which is where the title of the book came from. When I was writing my last book, the writer I was working with said, oh, conscious connection plus purpose equals joy. That's C2P. And if H2O is the water molecule, then C2P must be the joy molecule. I'm like, that's brilliant. And it sat there for a decade until I wrote this book. So my definition for joy is pretty simple these days. Know what you are, who you are, and why you are. And when you know those three things, nobody can tell you anything different. And you can walk on this planet knowing that you are what you are and that you're not seeking. And I think a lot of people that lack joy are seeking outward approval or outward means or outward gifts or whatever they are to feel better about themselves. And I can just say one thing for clear, so clear to me, is that joy is an inward journey, not an external journey.
Yeah. That distinction really matters because many people are functioning well on the surface while quietly disconnecting from themselves underneath.
There's no question that we put on a good face. My daughter, when she was 6 years old, said, Daddy, nobody knows what's going on inside of my head except for me. And that is so true. And we have no idea what's going on in somebody else's head. And they can have this beautiful smile on and wearing this beautiful clothes and driving the perfect car, and their house at home is misery. But as soon as they walk out the door, they snap and they get into mode, and Tony Robbins can teach you how to be in state and all of that. But if you're not centered, if you're not clear on what's true in life for you, and no matter how much you convince yourself, then I think I understand where it all comes from. It comes from our upbringing and our belief system. And our belief system is shaped by all the interpretations that we have of all the experiences that we've had in our life, which is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of all the experiences going on in this moment. So our little world is so small compared to the world of all humans. And then humans are not even experiencing everything that's going on. We're only experiencing a fraction. So we're basing our entire belief system on the interpretations of what I myself have witnessed in my lifetime. Now, how can that be true? But our mind wants us to believe it's true, and it tricks us, keeps us from finding this idea of joy and happiness.
Let's talk more about the joy molecule. You say joy comes from aligning three things: what you are, who you are, and why you are.
Yes.
What's one everyday sign that these areas are out of alignment?
When you have stress in your life, when you don't know what's next. So for me, I was at a networking event recently and somebody said, if I could give you a Christmas gift or a holiday gift, what would it be? And I said, a really good breadcrumb detector. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, life is about following the breadcrumbs. And it's about everything that happens in our life happens for us, not to us. And I can tell you the people that wake up out of alignment, everything is happening to them. They don't own their experiences. They don't own their interpretations. They're just living each day as if they are a boat on the water being thrown from side to side. When there's no anchor, there's nothing anchoring them to the ground. And they believe that what they're experiencing is true. Now, in that moment, it's their truth, but it's not true. So I think many people that I meet are so focused on achieving and winning. And when they get there, and they'll be happy when, there's no happy when, there's only happy. And the breadcrumbs are all these different events that happen in our life that give us signs as to what we should be doing with our life. And the book itself is 8 stories. It's 8 stories about 8 amazing people that I've met in my life. And there's 5 lessons that come from those 8 stories. So there's 2 lessons about young men that I've met from Uganda. One is Armstrong, who I met in 2012 when I went for the first time. And we spent a month there, and I ended up lending Armstrong some money, eventually moved him to the United States. He's now married with a couple of kids and has a business back in Africa and a business here. Super amazing young man. And the last story is this young man, Trinity, who is a street kid who grew up in Kampala in one of the worst slums that you can imagine and got his first computer at 13, got his first job at 19, and now at 32 has trained over 5,000 street kids through his containers that are in the slums all over Uganda and one in Kenya. And his company is called ERA 92. And those two stories taught me that circumstance does not define your joy. That no matter where you are in the world, you live in New Delhi, I live in San Diego, doesn't matter where you are. That joy has nothing to do with life circumstance. The second story in the book is Kerry Rich, who was handed $2 million at 26 to go change the world. That whole story is all about my work needs to matter. That chapter is called Redirecting Capital. How do we use money to do good, not just make money? The third set of stories, there's three of them, which to me are the most powerful stories in the book, are three challenged athletes. These are people that have lost something in their life. So Jeff Mata is a good friend, and I rode a bike from San Francisco to San Diego with him at 640 miles in 7 days on a tandem bike. And Jeff is 100% blind. He's also a world champion jiu-jitsu competitor. He's on the Paralympic U.S. judo team, and he's just an amazing human being. He's been 100% blind for about 17 years now, and almost committed suicide the first year it happened, 5 years before he accepted his blindness. And once he accepted being blind, he was able to rebuild an identity. The second story in that set is Moon Tucker, who lost her arm in a motorcycle accident. She's amazing, world champion archer. And the third story is Joe Delagrave. I'll be talking to Joe later today. And Joe and I will be writing the book together. The title of that section is called The Identity Illusion. Joe broke his neck at 19, and his identity was ripped from him. So who are we really? Our identity is so profound in our culture, especially in the United States, but also all over the world, is that we believe that we are who we think we are. And we're not. We just are. We are being. We are energy. And our mind wants us to believe these things. The last two stories are a woman who helped me publish the book, all about persistence, perseverance, and patience. If you ever met Judith Briles, you would know that that defines her. And then there's the last section of the book. It's called The Enough Academy. And the question is, when we have enough, what is our responsibility back to society? So Irving Levin and his wife, Stephanie, they have a foundation. Irving sold a bank for a lot of money 20 years ago, started being a philanthropist, and has settled on putting first-generation college students through college. He now has 1,000 young people under scholarship, 250 new people a year, $5,000 a year, every year, for 4 years. And he's an amazing guy. And he doesn't give the money because the money's sake. The money is a tool for connection to these people. And he sees these people changing the lives of their families, their siblings, their parents, and everybody around them. So those are the 5 lessons in the book. Circumstances not define your joy. My work needs to matter. That our identity is what steals joy from us. The more we're attached to our identity, the further we are away from joy. That we need to persevere all the time. And then when we have enough, the question is, what do we do with what is? And that's the book for me. It's these amazing people that I've met, and I get to tell their stories, and I get to live my life through seeing the joy that they have on their faces. When I looked at Trinity and Armstrong, they just walk through this world. And if you knew what happened to Trinity in his childhood, I mean, Trinity joined a gang at 9 years old. His mom went to work in the city, and she couldn't care for him in the slums, and he ended up in a gang. And within 6 months, lost 4 of his friends, dead, like gone. So he was worried every moment of every day that he was going to die. And 2 weeks before his 13th birthday, his gang leader, he was ready to quit the gang, but he couldn't because they would kill him. So his gang leader got stoned in front of him, and a bunch of people that were around him said, "Run, get out of here." So he ends up hiding behind a church with 2 of his friends. One of them was so malnourished that he almost died from malnutrition. And they're behind this church, and a woman taps him on the shoulder. And she's from Northern Ireland. And she says, "Young man, if I could give you one thing that would keep you off the streets for life, what would it be?" She said, "We're starting a mission for young boys on the streets." And Trinity's there with his friend, and his friend says, "If you get me a musical instrument, I'll stay off the streets forever. And Trinity says, if you get me a computer, I'll stay off the streets forever. Because all Trinity wanted to do was play video games and escape from everything he was seeing. Because he was just traumatized from his entire life. So he gets his computer. For the first 2 years, all he does is play video games. By the time he's 15, he's realizing what this thing can do. By the time he's 19, he got a design job with Coca-Cola in Kampala. And 3 months after he got the job, he was able to move his family out of the slum. And 6 months later, he quit. And everybody's like, why did you quit? He said, I'm the lucky one out of all my friends in the slums. I want to go back and teach them computers. And he met a young woman who is now his COO. And she's sitting there saying, my dad fell off a ladder yesterday. I'm the oldest of 6 children. And everybody says I need to go make a living. And the only way I know how to do that is to become a prostitute. I start tonight. And he's like, no way. That's not happening. I will pay for what you need until I can figure out how to help you make money. So he teaches her computers. So he learned in 2 years, she learned in 3 months. And then he started teaching others. And he realized that that is his life's mission. So if we follow what's inside, and Trinity has challenges every moment of every day. He's just built this amazing building and he's got cash flow challenges and everything else. But he's in my apartment looking around the United States in my jacuzzi in my apartment complex, just like, Papa, look at this. It's amazing. This is a 32-year-old young man whose birthday is Christmas Day. And he's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I'm just blessed beyond measure to have the opportunity to meet all these people, to tell their stories, and to help people connect it to why we're here. At the end of the day, that's the story.
You have spoken openly about your daughter's mental health struggles, and I want to approach this with a lot of respect.
Yeah.
How did that experience reshape your understanding of joy, not as a concept, but as a father?
Yeah. Separating my identity and separating my label as dad from what was going on and just letting things unfold. And I could tell, so I have this construct I learned through a program called Insight. It talks about basic self, conscious self, and higher self. So basic self is our inner child, conscious self is our age-appropriate behavior, and higher self is our knowing. And when I was in basic self, I was scared to death when I saw my daughter going through what she was going through, and it was a manic episode, and it's over now, and she's finding solid ground, and it's amazing to watch her journey. And if I let my highest self model everything, then everything's happening for us, not to us. There's a reason this is happening, and we just have to wait. There's a TED Talk, there's a commencement speech by Steve Jobs that he gave at Stanford in 2005. And that commencement speech talks about one concept at the beginning. The first third of the speech is all about connecting the dots. And he talks about connecting the dots. He says you can't connect them looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And you have to trust in something, karma, your gut, instinct, whatever it is, that the dots will somehow connect. So you have to understand that to find peace in this world and to find joy, we need to do the next best logical thing and stop worrying about what we didn't do or what we could have done or what's going to happen or anything else, because there is no past and there is no future. The only moment that exists is right now. Yet our mind gives us this construct of time that allows us to put things in perspective and allows us to live in orderly society. It does a lot of good things. I'm not saying the mind is a bad thing at all. It's just the challenge that it provides to us as humans is it causes us to believe that we can control something. And the truth is the world's been unfolding for billions and billions of years, and it's unfolding perfectly every day. The only challenge is it's not meeting our expectations.
That challenges the idea that strength means control and instead points towards empathy and connection.
I think it's all about connection, Yusuf.
Mm.
In 2012, when I went to Africa, I thought purpose was our destiny. I thought it was all about we needed to figure out why we're here. That was our reason for being. And then when I got through that and I realized what I was doing, I said, okay, that's a doorway. and that's a doorway to connection. And then when I started searching about happiness and joy, it's also a doorway. They're all doorways. It's like when you say, why does something happen? At the end of the day, the why is because we're all seeking love. So if love is the thing we're seeking, then the best way to find love is through connection. And connection starts with connecting to self, not to connect. This was my challenge as a child. As I raised myself, my parents are wonderful people and I love them. And they're 94 and 91 and they're still pretty cognizant and they're amazing humans and they're great parents for me. But when I was a kid, my dad was broke when I was 10 and they were very busy doing what they were doing. So I raised myself, youngest of three kids. They thought my brother and sister were taking care of me and they weren't. And I just tried to figure it out on my own. And I was so externally focused on relationships with other people that I suffocated people. And I had to learn how to develop relationships. But the relationship I needed to develop the most was with me, was with my own thoughts, with my own being. I mean, the biggest project for 2026 is my body. I am a good athlete and I've been good to my body, but my body's been much better to me than I've been to it. So it's part of my next part of my journey. I don't beat myself up for what I've done in the past. I don't worry about what happened. I do the next best logical thing. I follow the breadcrumbs because that's the only thing I can do. What I'd invite listeners to think about is that we live in these comfortable rooms. And at one wall in the room there's a door. And it's that door you never want to open. It's the door that says if I go there, that might be really painful. And I can promise you that if you open that door, if you turn that doorknob and you open it and you go through, and the journey is not what's on the other side. The journey is actually to the inside, is to figure out what's inside of us. And if we just turn that door and do an inward journey, I promise that the external effects of your inward journey will be so much more pleasurable than not going on that journey at all. Because that idea of control, that idea of leadership is strength, and leadership is this way of being that controls everything around them, to me is fantasy. And it just creates pain. It doesn't serve anyone at all. It just serves our ego. And our ego does not need to be fed. Our ego needs to be calmed. Our ego needs to be told that you are a servant to the being that occupies this body. So I am a spirit that has a mind and a body. And every time a thought comes in my head, I get to decide what to do with it. I don't just react to it. And that's what most of the people that I meet end up doing is they react to what's going on in their mind. And their mind runs the show. And it's not bad. It just is. And the question is it peaceful? I'll be happy when is a very hard place to be because then you need to accomplish something in order to be happy. And then it's a fleeting thing because there's no sense of being. There's just a sense of doing and having.
Larry, are there any ways that our listeners can connect with you?
Sure. My website is 5 dots. So Steve Jobs talks about connecting dots. I love numbers and words. So 5-dots.com is the website. My email address is Larry at Kesslin, KESSLIN.com. I'm happy to connect with listeners and talk to them about what I've learned on this journey. And I coach for a living. I coach people around life and finding more peace in their life. And I also have an expertise around connection and business development. So I help companies build ecosystems and communities around their companies. And I enjoy what I do every day. It's a friend of mine said something to me recently that I'll hold on to. He said, I get paid to do the work I was meant to do. I don't do the work I do to get paid. And it creates a sense of freedom and a sense of peace that I've never experienced before in my life. But I'm grateful I'm here at this moment in time, doing what I'm doing, being the person that I'm being, and being the father that I am for the two children that I helped raise. So I have a son in addition to our daughter. They're 25 and 24. My son's getting married next year, and I'm very excited about that. So it's an amazing time in life.
Larry, thank you so much for sharing your experiences your honesty, and work behind the joy molecule. Your perspective reminds us that joy isn't something we perform, it's something we align with.
Thank you very much, Yusuf. It's been a pleasure being on the show.
Thank you so much. And to our listeners, this new year doesn't demand a new version of you. It will simply ask for a more honest relationship with yourself. This is Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm Yusuf. Take yourself of your mind, stay connected of your inner world, and allow joy to meet you where you are.